Three important updates could change the course of the series between the Panthers and Maple Leafs. The first came quietly, but with impact. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, a key piece on defense, didn't show up on the ice before Game 3. The reason? Illness. But at a time when every detail matters, the timing raises suspicions. Meanwhile, Anthony Stolarz, the goalie hit by Domi in Game 1, a play that caused outrage but no punishment, is starting to show signs of a possible return. And speaking of Domi, he has become the face of a new identity in Toronto. Tougher, more provocative, and unapologetic. A style that is both intimidating but also exciting. With the series tied and the pressure of playing at home, the Leafs are living on the edge between glory and collapse. And these three factors, an absence, a return, and a new attitude, could be decisive for the immediate future of the franchise. Let's check all of this out together now. Update 1. What if I told you that a simple find could ignite the fuse of a silent war between two of the NHL's most explosive rosters? That behind a hit in the final seconds lies something bigger than a dirty play. A message, a shout, an unwritten code of revenge. Domi wasn't suspended, and that very fact could alter the course of the series, and perhaps even the fate of a franchise that carries the weight of nearly 6 decades without glory. The Toronto Maple Leafs might be on the verge of changing everything. The scene could have come straight out of a movie script, with just a few seconds left in the game and the Panthers' 2-0 victory all but secured. Domi charges like missile toward Alexander Barkov. The captain of the opposing team, completely out of the play, is shoved hard into the boards. In seconds, chaos erupts. A full-blown brawl breaks out on the ice. Amid the punches, shoves, and taunts, the real battle is just beginning. But to understand what this moment represents, we need to go back a little in time and dive into what it means to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, a team that has carried a broken promise to its fans since 1967. Generations of fans have grown up watching their idols fail. Traumatic eliminations, improbable comebacks against their own team, losses in games that seem like certain victories. Year after year, the script repeats. But this time, something has changed. Coach Berube is not a man of mincing words. He arrived in Toronto with a clear mission to give this team what it lacked: identity, toughness, posture. And when Domi charges at Barkov, he's not just reacting to the score. He's, in a way, representing this new DNA that Toronto playing at a high level cultivate. Represents a DNA that mixes skill with aggression. And that brings back the spirit tied Domi, his father, one of the most feared and respected players in Leafs history. And that's where everything changes. The next morning, the NHL announces no suspension, just a $5,000 fine, the maximum allowed by the league's collective bargaining agreement. The decision brings immediate relief in Toronto, but provokes fury on the other side, because the same NHL had ignored a shoulder-to-head by Sam Bennett on goalie Anthony Stolarz, which sidelined the Leaf starter. For many, it seems like two sets of rules are being applied, and behind the scenes, the tension is growing. Coach Berube was clear. Dmitry Kulikov's hit on Mitch Marner was 10 times worse than Domi's play. And he's not alone in that feeling. The Toronto fan base, who saw Matthew Tkachuk promise to take care of William Nylander after the game, is on high alert. The rivalries are intensifying. The unwritten codes of hockey, passed down from generation to generation, are being activated. But there's more to this iceberg. Sources close to the Leafs organization suggest that this incident could be a catalyst for structural changes. There's a possibility that Toronto will consider adding players who align with this new philosophy. Names like Luke Schenn, David Savard, and Cody Ceci are starting to be mentioned in the hallways, all with a physical history, all with a playoff profile. The goal is simple: prevent the team's offensive talents, like Marner and Matthews, from becoming constant targets of intimidation without response. On the other side, the Panthers also don't plan to stand still. Paul Maurice, the team's coach, spoke soberly after the game. Barkov is fine, but the calm is only on the surface. The atmosphere behind the scenes is one of indignation, not just over the lack of a punishment for Domi, but over the message it sends, that this type of play could continue. And with players like Chuck on the roster, known for playing right on the edge of provocation and physicality, it's only a matter of time before another confrontation occurs, and perhaps with more severe consequences. Meanwhile, on the ice, the series is tied 2-2. The next game is in Toronto, where the Leafs feel more home. Goalie Joseph Woll, who replaced the injured Stolarz, had an impressive performance, stopping 37 shots. He was publicly praised by Berube, who highlighted his calmness and focus. Toronto knows they have a unique opportunity to win at home, turn the tide in their favor, and advance with momentum. But none of this is guaranteed, because this battle is not just technical. It's emotional, it's psychological, and it's physical. And that's why the potential trade, or even a series of small moves behind the scenes, could become the deciding factor. Will the Leafs take the risk and add more weight to their roster? Or will they bet on staying calm and trusting in their talent? This moment in the season is where franchises are defined, where empty speeches fall apart and actions speak for themselves. Max Domi, even without suspension, may have become the symbol of a new era. An era in which Toronto stops being passive and starts facing every provocation with a response. But like any choice, there's a price. And the next game may come with interest. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think of the NHL's decision not to suspend Domi? And do you think Toronto should respond on the ice with skill or with strength? Leave your opinion in the comments, because this debate is just beginning. Update 2. What if I told you that the true breaking point for the Maple Leafs wasn't hit nor a missed goal but the silence of practice? A discreet absence. Almost imperceptible, but one that could mean everything. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, the veteran defenseman who has played in every game of the playoffs so far, simply didn't show up on the ice Tuesday morning. The official reason? Illness. But in the middle of a series against the Panthers that has already taken on contours of war, the absence of such a key player can't and shouldn't be treated as a minor issue. While the spotlight was on the controversy surrounding Max Domi and his late hit on Florida's captain, Barkov, a new thread of tension was unraveling behind the scenes of the Toronto roster. Because it's not just the physicality that defines the series. It's the resilience, the ability to maintain structure when the ice shakes. And when a pillar like Ekman-Larsson shows signs of instability, the whole castle can collapse. OEL, as he's known, isn't a player who makes it onto the highlight reels. But he is there in every unglamorous play, every interception in the middle of the ice, in every moment when the team needs someone to bring order to the chaos. At 33, he doesn't have the explosiveness he once had, but his positional intelligence and experience are invisible weapons and essential for Craig Berube. In 10 games this postseason, the Swede has contributed 2 goals and 2 assists, but his value goes beyond the numbers. He is the quiet balance of a defense that, without him, could collapse. In Tuesday's press conference, Berube was brief. It's an illness. No return date, no further details. But the immediate replacement by Jani Hakanpää, who had only played twice during the regular season despite still playing at a high level, raised a red flag, represents a short-term. Hakanpää is known for his physicality, but he is clearly out of rhythm, vulnerable. And against an opponent like the Panthers, who don't forgive holes in the defense, this vulnerability could be fatal. At the same time, the context in which this absence occurs only adds to the gravity. Toronto and Florida are tied 2-2 in the series. Game 5 will be held in Toronto, where the Leafs hope to use the strength of their crowd to regain emotional and technical control of the matchup. But without OEL, this plan could fall apart, because the Panthers know how to sniff out weaknesses and attack them mercilessly. And if you truly follow the behind the scenes of the NHL, you already know this type of absence at such a critical moment is never just a coincidence. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel now. Because here, you don't just get news, you experience the pressure, the tension, and the behind-the-scenes action as if you were inside the locker room. This channel is your direct line to the heart of the ice, returning to the tense narrative that has taken over Toronto, the Max Domi incident. In the final seconds of the 2-0 loss to Florida, he charged at Barkov and shoved him into the boards, triggering a full-blown brawl. The NHL, in its most discussed decision of the week, chose not to suspend Domi. Instead, imposed a $5,000 fine, the maximum allowed by the collective bargaining agreement. The decision was met with relief and outrage in equal measure. Relief among Leafs fans, who didn't want to see their team even more shorthanded. Outrage because other dangerous plays, like Dmitry Kulikov's elbow to Mitch Marner, went unnoticed, without any punishment. Berube didn't hide his dissatisfaction. Kulikov's hit was 10 times worse. And this isn't an isolated case. In the series opener, Florida forward Sam Bennett hit goalie Anthony Stolarz, sidelining Toronto's starter for 3 games. Joseph Woll stepped in and, despite the pressure, shined in the last game, making 37 saves. He played an excellent game, Berube praised. But how long can he carry the load alone, especially if the defense starts to crumble? In this context, Ekman-Larsson is more than an absence. He's a symbol of a growing fragility. Toronto has built its new identity this postseason based on aggression, provocation, and physical presence. Domi is the embodiment of that. But how long can this identity endure without falling into the trap of losing control? Because playing on the edge requires balance. And that balance today is sick, off the ice, and with no clear return date. Hakanpää's presence on the ice Tuesday shows that the team is preparing for the worst. But the risks are clear. Players like Matthew Tkachuk have already made it clear they'll attack with everything they have. He was even caught saying to Nylander, "I'll get you." The next game will be physical, tense, and psychological. And if Toronto has an improvised defensive line, it could become easy prey. What Craig Berube does next could define the entire series. He's already shown tactical boldness, quick adjustments, and situational awareness. But this type of crisis demands more than technique. It demands strategic vision. Will the Leafs consider a roster change? Could names like Luke Schenn, who has worked with Berube and has history with the franchise, come back into conversation? These are the questions silently spreading through the hallways of the organization. Because if OEL doesn't return in time, Toronto will have to improvise. And improvising in a series against the Panthers is playing with fire. Game 5 will take place this Wednesday night in Toronto. The series could completely shift direction. One team will leave the Scotiabank Arena with control in hand. The other will be one step away from elimination. And you'll want to be here, understand every step of this drama. Now it's your turn. Does Ekman-Larsson's absence change everything? Should Toronto look to the market for more defensive depth? And how much longer is it worth keeping this provocative style that's been wearing down the roster? Comment below, because your opinion is the spark that fuels this community. Update 3. In the icy shadow of a rink still asleep, a solitary silhouette cuts through the silence. Anthony Stolarz is back on the ice. It wasn't announced. No spotlight. No journalist prepared to capture his first slip on the white surface. But for those closely following the Maple Leafs, that moment resonates as a sign. The warrior still breathes. It was just a light practice, 30 minutes of movement before the main team session. But there are games won in the locker room, and there are series decided in the details. And for Toronto, seeing their goalie, who disappeared for the ice after an unpunished elbow to the head in Game 1, returning to the surface is more than relief. It's a cry of resistance. Stolarz, at 31, was a victim of one of the most controversial plays of this postseason. A hit to the head, delivered by Sam Bennett. The Panthers center, that went unpunished. No suspension. No penalty. Just the uncomfortable silence of an NHL that once again seems reluctant to protect its athletes. Since then, Joseph Woll, the 26-year-old replacement, has carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he's responded with courage. In Game 4, even under intense fire, Woll made 35 saves. And though he was defeated 2-0, he was, for many, the best player tonight. A symbol of the solitary fight Toronto has been waging since Stolarz's injury. But now, with the series tied 2-2 in Game 5 scheduled for this Wednesday in Toronto, the simple act of seeing Stolarz back on the ice reignites a flame. There is no set return date. Craig Berube, Leafs coach, was firm. He's progressing, but we don't have a timeline. And that alone sets up a parallel still narrative. Playing at a high level, unfolding represents a short-term. The doubt hangs over Scotiabank Arena. When and if Stolarz returns, what will it mean for the team? A goalie swap in the middle of a series? A risky rotation? Or the reaffirmation that the Leafs are not willing to go down without fighting with all they've got? And as if that weren't enough, another blow hit the roster. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, the veteran Swedish defenseman and a key part of the team's third defensive pairing, missed Tuesday's practice. The reason? Illness. Yes, just a simple health issue. But in a series where every line must be at full strength, the absence of a player with his experience is a shock. With Ekman-Larsson out, Jani Hakanpää took his place. But the Finn has played only 2 games all season. Playoff rhythm? Almost non-existent. Quick adaptation to a series as physical as this? A huge question mark. Berube is being forced to improvise. And improvisations have limits, especially against a team like the Panthers, who know how to attack the cracks in their opponent's system. Meanwhile, tensions continue to simmer. The incident between Max Domi and Barkov still echoes. The late hit in the final seconds. The ensuing brawl. Matthew Tkachuk's explicit threat to William Nylander. Berube's ironic and tense statements. The absence of punishment for Florida. All of this has turned this series into an emotional arena. It's no longer just about winning on the ice. It's about withstanding psychological pressure, frustration with the refereeing, and the risk of losing more players. But even with all of this, there's something different about this Toronto. A darker, more mature tone. Berube didn't come to please. He came to expose wounds and demand answers. And players like Wall, even without star pedigree, have taken center stage. Not by choice, but by necessity. In this scenario, Stolarz becomes a strategic ghost. His mere presence on the ice before practice was enough to spark speculation. Would he be ready for Game 6? Or even for an eventual Game 7? And most importantly, if Wall falters, is he being prepared behind the scenes to reassume the position at a critical moment? And Ekman-Larsson? Is it just a temporary absence or the beginning of another crack in the Leafs defense? He has been solid, discreet, and reliable. The type of defenseman you only realize how much they mean when they're no longer there. This series is shaping up as a dance of balance. In each game, each team wins at home. Toronto has done its part. Florida has responded. Now, back on the ice at Scotiabank, the Leafs will need to show more than just technique. They'll need to show character. And that's why you're here. Not to see cold statistics, but to understand what's going on behind the cameras. To feel the weight of each absence. To see the ice as a stage where dramas unfold with every line change. So if you haven't hit that like button yet, now's the time. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. Because while others talk about plays and goals, here we talk about stories, about behind the scenes, about decisions that shape legacies. Now I want to know, if you were Berube, would you stick with Wall until the end, trusting his moment, or would you bet on Stolarz's recovery to try and change the course of the series? And as for the defense, can you trust Hakanpää despite his limited history this season? Or does Ekman-Larsson need to return in time, no matter the cost? Comment below. Every opinion counts. Because in this community, cheering is just the beginning. We live the game as if we were on the bench, ready for the next shift. In the next video, we'll investigate why the Panthers continue to go unpunished for so many controversial plays, and how this might affect the NHL's trust among players and fans. You won't want to miss it. The game may be tomorrow, but the drama has been unfolding for a long time.